Newport Recreation Center, and we've been putting on these winter lecture series since January, and this is our last one. And Marci, you officially got way more than everybody else for audience. So we've had a variety of different topics over the months, and this is our first time doing this. So we'll probably do it again next year. If anybody wants to speak next year, let me know. So we've had science topics, we've had topics like this, obviously. We had a steelhead dissection, we've had all kinds of fun stuff. So it's a wide variety, so come talk to me if you want to speak next year. Yeah, I'll just turn it over to Marci. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Okay, this is working. I am Marci Frederic. I use she, her pronouns. I am the director of Central Oregon Coast Trans Community here in Lincoln County. I'm here to talk about my journey, living here, being born and raised in Lincoln County, and what that journey has been like. I was born in Toledo in 1975. And my dad was a fisherman here for over 33 years, and my mom was a housewife. They divorced when I was about 10 years old. But I grew up in the Lincoln County system of the things that happen to queer children and trans children and people within the LGBTQIA2S+ community, and it is not easy, especially living in a place that's more conservative. And growing up in this area was not the easiest. I feel like it's easier now, of course, that I'm living my true self, but being told as a child that if you come out that you would be murdered, that you will be taken into the woods and killed, because these are the things that I was told as a child living here. And from what I understand from many of the children that I have spoken recently, these are the same things that are being told to them today. Same thing with the schools. Schools tend to give bullies a pass. They gave all of my bullies a pass. I was always forced to shake their hand after they physically or emotionally abused me through the day, every day. I try to tell people to imagine what it would be like to go to work every day of your life as an adult and have someone poke at your fat, and have somebody call you a faggot, and someone call you these words that are meant to shame you and make you feel less than and hide, so that it's easier for the cisgender and heterosexual community to feel more comfortable, because my existence was uncomfortable for them. And as I got older, I was able to see how that changed from being a queer child to being a queer teen. I used to babysit for neighbors, and that slowly stopped. I was slowly stopped to ask, to come over and watch their children, because they were scared that I might make their kids like myself. When I came out at the age of, I think it was about 25, my brother made a conscious decision at that point to keep his family separate from me, and so I was not invited to family functions and birthdays and Christmases, campouts, and things like that. Throughout my family, even family reunions, I was not told about those functions until either they were happening or they had happened. And I would see the pictures of everybody's joy and happiness, and I was never there. So, living here has been a challenge, and after I got to high school, after surviving elementary school between Toledo and Siletz, I made it back to Toledo and high school, and I couldn't continue more. And so at the age of 15, I dropped out. And we had ended up moving to Prineville, Oregon, which was even better. And so I tried to go back to school in Prineville, Oregon, and that was, again, it was uncomfortable. I felt like a shell. I felt like just someone who was invisible or was meant to be picked on, or a punching bag for other people. And so after several months of that, I dropped out, and I just said I wasn't going to school anymore. And there wasn't much my mom could do about that at that point, because it was my choice. But I did get my GED. I got my GED at the age of 17. I went to Central Oregon Coast Community College, and I got that. I think that was in 92. And when I turned 18, I moved to Portland. I lived in Portland for about 5 years. And by that point, I was extremely obese. I weighed over 350 pounds and was not comfortable in myself or with who I was. Still trying to pull off being a straight man. and when you're quite feminine and perceived as a man, the straightness does not pull off very well. So I lived in Portland for about 5 years and worked at Taco Bell and became a manager, and I eventually hurt my back and ruptured my discs and ended up having to move back home again. And so I moved back to Toledo, And I ended up moving in with my dad, and I was staying with him for a while, and eventually got a job with Chinook Winds. And the reason I got the job at Chinook Winds was because I was 350 pounds. And at that point, my aunt had just had gastric bypass surgery, and I seen how well she was doing, and it worked well for her, but it was out of my reach. I was not wealthy. I did not have medical. I had state medical insurance that wouldn't have paid for it. So I got the free consultation with the doctor, and the doctor gave me a list of different insurances that cover the gastric bypass surgery. And so I went down the list, and I found out which companies here locally covered that with those insurances, and I applied at those, and Chinook Winds happened to be one of them. So I became a blackjack dealer, and I was a blackjack dealer and pit boss for 5 years at Chinook Winds, until that came to an end because of my disability and some other things. But that was definitely a journey, and probably one of my most favorite jobs. Working at Chinook Winds, and starting there, being 354 pounds, was not easy, it was difficult. But that is where I had my journey of my weight loss, and there was a lot of supportive people within Chinook Winds, and several other people started having surgeries because they seen how well it was working for me, and so they also did that. I forgot to speak about when I was 17. When I was younger, before I moved to Portland, there was a time that, this is important to speak on because this is gender affirming care, was supposed to be gender affirming care at that time. I was not developed very well. I was not big, and they were concerned about that with my testicles and other parts. And so they started injecting me with testosterone, and I was injected with testosterone weekly for about a year, from the age 17 to 18. And before that, I was probably asexual. I had no sexual feelings or desires or anything until after that point. And that's when I started noticing my attraction to men, which then was also confusing because I was perceived as a male, and I was attracted to men, so I thought I was gay, but yet that term didn't quite fit. That didn't feel right. Who knew I was a straight woman? So I went through that year of testosterone, which when it was a change on my body. Definitely, when you go through puberty and something that's not meant for you. I felt like I was going crazy. I was always angry and upset, and I didn't know why. I didn't know that this was the results of the testosterone that was being injected into me. I thought that this was the magic potion that was going to fix me. I thought it would make me like my brothers. I thought I would be normal. It didn't. It didn't change anything other than make things harder for me. I started growing face hair, and with that started dysphoria, which at the time I did not know was gender dysphoria. It was just a discomfort that I had looking into the mirror, and I didn't know what that was. So moving back home, I lived with my dad for a while, and that's when I eventually came out as gay. And so I tried to live my life as a gay man for 15 years. And the reason I chose to do that rather than, I guess, speak on my truth at that time was because I didn't feel that my family would understand. I didn't think that society would understand. I didn't think that I would ever have the availability or the insurance or the money to be able to transition. I didn't know that just transitioning could mean just changing your clothes or just taking a shot. I thought transition meant that you had to have surgeries and you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in procedures, and that's just not true. It's not true at all, and everybody's transition is different and is unique for each individual. So after I moved back, came out as gay, lived my life for 15 years as a gay man, and that didn't work out very well. My dad eventually passed in 2014. And after his passing, it just made me do a lot of thinking about who I was, what I had done, what I hadn't done, and who I wasn't. And so, coming to a conclusion of all those questions, at the age of 40, I started doing more research on Google and YouTube videos and listening to other trans people's journeys and stories, and recognizing that I was just like them. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to go. There was no support system that I knew of here. I grew up here, born and raised here. I was 40 years old and had not a clue where to start. So I went to my therapist, and we started right away. She hooked me up with a local doctor who is still practicing today. And I was one of his, I believe I was his very first trans patient. And we started a journey, and recognizing that there were a lack of support system here in Lincoln County, not just support of where do I ask, who do I ask questions to, right? I had never known a trans person in my life. I didn't know what to ask or who to ask or where to go, and so I decided to create a support system not only for myself, but for the entire trans community and gender expansive community here in Lincoln County, because we needed it, and I needed to ask questions. I needed to know about myself. I know the importance of not knowing about yourself. What led me to decide to transition was after my dad's passing, I went down a very, very dark road with depression. My face hair was grown out real long. I had gained 80 pounds. I was not taking care of myself. I was living very reclusively. I didn't have any friends. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I pretty much stayed home or went over to my mom's, and that's what my life consisted of. It wasn't much more than that. One night I found myself in my shower with a knife in one hand and my phone in the other. And I knew that I didn't want it. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be in this pain anymore. I didn't understand it. At this time, I still didn't even know that I was suffering from dysphoria. For whatever reason, I had taken that phone with me, and I called my friend. I told her I was in a very dark place. And she reminded me of how worthy I was. And she told me that I was meant more for this world. And she said that my story would make a difference and that it would help people. And I know that it has, because in the 9 years that I've been transitioning, I know that I've helped people here. I know that I've saved lives. I know that because of me, because of my vulnerability and my ability and my privilege to be able to live proud and out loud as a trans woman in Licking County has made a difference for many different people here, not just adults. It has changed the lives of children and grandparents and parents and siblings. People have told me that I have opened their eyes, that they didn't understand, that they get it now.
Right on.
I've had one of my bullies, who used to bully me every day, contact me and apologize.
Wow.
He apologized for the harm that he did, and he didn't realize what he was doing as a child. And I had already come to recognize that. But it was just that one more piece of that puzzle to my healing journey that helped, because I then felt that at least someone recognized their harm that they had done to me. And so that was validating for me. I've had friends of my siblings come to me because their children or grandchildren are on their gender journey and trying to figure themselves out, and they don't know how to help them. And so they come to me because they know who I am and my journey, and I've been open about it. And so that brings us to here. Within the 9 years that I've been transitioning, I've been trying to speak out loud on the subject. I've been trying to educate people and just bring a human face, human reality, a human journey to what the trans journey is. And I want everybody to know that every trans person's journey is unique. We are not the same, we're all different. Just because one person doesn't like one thing doesn't mean it's okay for the other person. It's we're all individuals, and we just want to live. I've had to face lots of transphobia within my journey. I've been asked to leave places. I've been checked at dressing rooms at Salvation Armies because they thought I was in there doing something weird, trying on bikini bottoms. Even here, people have made false statements about trans people, trying to stir up things within the political community, trying to ostracize me and segregate me because of their discomfort, because of their lack of knowledge, because of their lack of understanding. And it's just that, people are people, and some women have penises and some don't. Some boys have vaginas and some don't. And that's just the way it is. And, I think when everybody can start coming to that realization and recognition that there are trans people. We are here. We have lived here and existed since the beginning of time, regardless of what anybody tells you. And we're not going anywhere. And you can't erase us. So, questions?
What is the best part of being trans?
What is the best part of being trans? Being me. Just being me.
you want to tell us just one piece about the program you've created that you want to make sure that all of us know about, what would that piece be? Like is a program, a gathering, an event of some kind?
The program, so my program, Central Oregon Coast Trans Community, has been laying low for the last few years because there have been some tragedies within my family. I have had 3 suicides within a 17-month period in my family, and then I myself almost died 2 years ago this April. And so I needed time for myself to heal. And oh, is it going dead or did I just hit it? Is it on? No, there we go. Okay. So I needed that support. I needed that time to heal for myself, and so I backed away from my organization. Oh, it is, I think it is dying. So I backed away from my organization. You can check it.
It says it still has battery.
Okay. Okay. So I had to back away because I needed that. I needed that support. Maybe it's just the thing isn't.
I just didn't know if you had like something going on and what you want to say.
I do. I want to start support group meetings again. I was holding support group meetings twice a month, and I was doing that for, oh gosh, about 4 years until the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, we were doing it virtually, but then the organization that was helping me, things ended up not working out, and I had to stop doing the online group meetings. But I would like to start those again because I do feel that I'm working on healing myself, and I think that I can give that back to people again. So, but yeah, what I do is in my organization is transitional support services, and that consists of anywhere between helping someone connect with resources, doctors, therapists, or if they just need peer support, to talk to me about what my journey has been like and questions about my surgeries and transition. So yeah.
How can I make things better for you?
How can you make things better for me? Call our representatives and let them know that what is happening right now is BS. And also let them know that you are glad that they are being supportive. Tina Kotek has been supportive and has put out a statement. I would like to see Lincoln County put out a statement that says that they are going to support the trans and gender expansive communities and that they will back us no matter what the federal government is.
From the commissioner, Lincoln County commissioner?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe that would need to come from there. So, and I also think just making yourself aware, calling out transphobia where it is, even if you don't know. If there's a discomfort, it probably is. I mean, even if you can't name it. So that's it. Yes.
I was hoping to understand a little bit more about when you were, I don't know, like under the age of 10, if there was a time when you didn't identify with a gender, or you did, and I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what you said. You did talk about that a little bit, but I'm just curious if you didn't identify for periods of time, or you always did.
I feel like I don't know that I would say that I identified whether it was male or female. I have always felt who I was in myself. I think the difference is when I started recognizing it was when I was older and I would recognize the difference between boys and girls. And it wasn't so much the physicality of the way people looked, but more of the presentations. Like, I knew I wasn't like my brothers and my dad. I was more like my mom and my sister. Although I knew that I didn't look like my mom or my sister. And so I knew I was different, I felt different, I just didn't have the language to put to that.
This isn't actually a question I know, but it's I have a granddaughter and she has friends, and some of them are questioning their gender. And I'm at a loss to know how I can be helpful in any manner. Because, and I'll tell you, this is my thought process, is I spend very little time thinking about gender issues. I'm old, you know, been there, done that, you know, past thinking about that stuff mostly. And I don't want to make that the central point of my relationship with them. And how do you be supportive without it becoming a thing?
Well, I know that some people might call it a thing, but being supportive is being visible. It's having your pride flag put out in the front yard. It's making sure that you have queer literature and books and movies, and that you include that within the things that you're doing. It's important that you talk about those topics, learn about trans actors and actresses and singers and artists and poets, and start learning about the different journeys, about different trans people, because you don't want to ask them, the more you can learn about other people's journeys, the better you can understand. Yes, self-educate yourself. Do Google. It's quite amazing. Just, if it happens to be religious-based, I would be hesitant to take any knowledge from that, because the religious community has hurt us through that, and they have spread falsehoods through that information. So yeah, be very careful with the information that you do read, but also, yes, try to self-educate yourself as much as possible.
I just want to say I think you are beautiful.
Thank you.
When they had that disturbance here at the rec center, and came and spoke to city council, you were great.
Thank you.
Put it out there to be so courageous. Thank you.
Thank you.
For this community.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I feel like when that happened, I think I was probably one of the first people to put in her slip to talk, but yet they lost it. So I was the last one to talk, and I think it ended perfectly with me being the last one to talk, but I also feel, and this is my own self-criticism, I also felt like I didn't say enough, right? But everybody that I have talked to said you said just the right things, so thank you, I appreciate that. Yes?
What's the best part of being trans?
The best part of being trans is being myself, but also the community that I've built here within my own community, And it is possible, and I know that for a lot of trans people, they're not exposed to the queer community, and so you can feel very alone, even here. Like, I have created and built, and I have hundreds of friends who are queer and trans here in Lincoln County, but you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that, because we don't have like a central place where we connect or congregate or whatever. We usually do that in the summertime with campouts and and other events, or prides. But yeah, I feel like being trans, the best part of it is having that community that I was able to build from that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, Lord, sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
What would have made it easier to come out?
I'm sorry.
What would have made it easier for you to come out?
What would have made it easier for me to come out is if we had had the language back then. there was the knowledge on the trans journey. Had my parents been supportive of that, had I knew about that there was possibilities in transitioning and being who I was, that's what would have made it easier. Just knowing that not only there is possibility, but also understanding who I was. Because we're not taught gender. We're not taught the difference. I didn't know there was more than 2 genders or 2 sexes. I thought that's all there was. And there's a lot more than that. So yeah, I think if I had had the language and the support and the availability to that, I think that would have made it easier. And that's also why I do this, because I want other kids, I want children to know that it is possible. You can live your life, you can be happy, you can be who you are, and it doesn't matter what anybody says.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
What's my favorite what?
Dinosaur.
My favorite dinosaur is the T-Rex. You had a question?
How did you pick your name?
How did I pick my name? My name comes from one of my big sister's high school best friends. There were 4 sisters. I don't know if any of you know the Herdings, but they grew up here. Marci Frederic was my older sister's best friend, and she, her name always resonated with me. It was always, I kept coming back to that, because when I came up with my name, I wanted it to be similar because I wanted it to be easy for my family. See, even within my transition, I was still thinking of my family. I was still thinking of them rather than myself. I was thinking of their comfortability and what would be easier for them instead of just doing myself. But I always resonated with that name. That name kept coming back to me, and so that's the name that I chose. And I like to tell her that I am her namesake, because they did play a big part of my life. They were always a very positive, bright spot in my life. Somehow, I don't know really. I know that Marci's youngest sister, Annie, used to babysit me. Well, they all did, but Annie was the one that I feel like I was more attached to, even though I chose Marci's name, so. But that's how I got my name. Anybody else? Oh, yes.
I have a friend in Portland who transitioned from being him to her, and she says that she is heterosexual. So but it doesn't identify as a man, so this might be the stupidest question ever, but.
So is she attracted to women?
Yeah, he was married before he transitioned, and then his wife, when he transitioned, fell in love with her all over again, and it was great, there was no problem.
Right.
It was a great, everything was fine.
Right.
And so I Googled the question, how many heterosexual trans people are there? And I felt like I didn't get, I felt confused by all the answers on Google.
Well, that can be a kind of a loaded question, to be honest. I consider myself a queer trans woman, but within that, I tend to live a heterosexual life, or because I've only ever really been sexually attracted to men, but I have felt romantically attracted to women and non-binary people as well as men. And so that's why I consider myself a queer woman. Now, your friend, and it's very, I also want to say that when you speak of your friend who is transitioning, and if her pronouns are she and her, it's extremely important to always use those pronouns, because even when she's not here, she still knows that you use them. She knows that you don't use them correctly because you just use them incorrectly. And so by having mistakes, we know that you don't use them. But to answer your question, it would actually define, it would have to define on her what her idea of that is. Because she might still be attracted to women, and she's a trans woman, but she might consider herself heterosexual. That's how she identifies. That's her identity. I can't explain that. That's, you know, I would say you'd have to ask her on that one.
Well, I did. I mean, I know everything she told me.
Right.
But when I Googled the question, how many heterosexual people identify as heterosexual?
I mean, trans people identify as heterosexual. I don't know that there's a study on that, to be honest. I mean, they hardly do any studies on us to begin with. I mean, I was asked by the nursing, one of the nursing students, if I would come in and do a presentation because they don't cover anything in trans health. Zero. Nothing.
So to explain trans woman, what?
Trans woman would be someone who was assigned male at birth,
Okay.
and then transitions to female.
Okay, and what, who would this be that she's mentioning?
That would be someone who was assigned male at birth, transitioning to a woman.
So
Trans woman. She would be a trans woman, yes.
She is heterosexual.
Yeah.
Her friend is saying that she's heterosexual, so if she's saying she's heterosexual and she's a trans woman, I would assume that she's attracted to men.
She's not. She's very good.
Okay. Well, and she might still be figuring out her journey as
You
well.
would call her lesbian.
I wouldn't call her anything she wouldn't want to be called.
What does she want to be called?
Right. That's part of the.
All the pronouns I've used is what she used.
Okay, okay.
I recently heard the term genderqueer. Is
Uh-huh.
that the same as transgender?
No, genderqueer. So genderqueer is someone who is more flexible within their gender. Like they might identify or feel male one day and then might feel female the next day or the next week. It's more fluid.
So a gender fluid, will they be referring to themselves as they? Is that the?
Not necessarily, no. Yeah, it all depends on each person. Like I said, each trans person, and just because someone might be genderqueer doesn't mean that they're trans. Yeah.
Yeah. Just following up on that, you have a question for what's non-binary.
I'm sorry?
What's non-binary?
What's non-binary? Non-binary is someone who does not stick to the normal binary. They don't identify as male or female. They might identify as both or neither. I thought I seen someone else with their hand up.
Have you had surgeries or are you going to?
I have had surgery. That is because it's on the question, and that's fine, but that is not normally a proper question to ask any trans person unless they have opened themselves up to answering it correct. But yes, I have had surgeries. I had my bottom surgery, and that was in 2018, and then I had a revision in 2020, I think it was. Yeah. And that's the only surgery I've had.
That's not true.
No.
Gastric bypass.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the only transitional surgery I had. I've had lots of surgeries.
Exactly.
Was there a moment for you of gender euphoria that clarified things?
I've had many moments of gender euphoria within my transition. I'm going to say probably the biggest one is when I woke up from my surgery, because I didn't know if I would wake up, and I didn't want it to be over. I wanted to live and continue. But I think one of the biggest ones is my bottom surgery. I've also experienced gender euphoria from being called pretty the very first time in my life. I had waited over 40 years for someone to look at me and call me pretty and really mean it. And that right there was wholesome error. Anybody else?
I have to say, you're one of the greatest persons I've heard in a long time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Any more? Okay.
What advice can you give to grandparents of children from a marriage of a trans and a lesbian, say?
Okay.
How
So,
can you advise us what to do, how to gear ourselves to grandchildren, if there's anything we can be doing to help?
I guess I'm trying to understand what you're asking as far as like, so.
Do young children realize that their parents are trans, or do they know that?
They might not know it right away, but children are very smart and usually they're just fine with it. Like if someone is transitioning and they have children, if that's your question, and how do you address that with them, you just tell them. You just address it. You tell them that, you know, mommy is going to be daddy, or mommy is, you know, you just try to do it within their age and just explain to them, and usually they're okay. Kids are fine. Kids are like, okay, you know, and they move on. They keep it moving. It's us, it's the adults that have our hang-ups, because society has told us that we're one way and you got to be in this box, and if you don't fit in this box, then you're not right. You're something different. Yeah. So I just say support them, support the kiddos, and you know, ask them if there's anything that you can do to help support them within their parents' transition. They might have questions that they want to ask their parent and can't. So. Anybody else? Oh.
Two-part question.
Yes.
You may have touched on this already, but what is your relationship like now with your family? And then also, what worries you most as a trans person?
What was the second question?
What worries you most as a trans person?
What worries me the most? Okay, so the first question was, how's my relationship with my family? My relationship with my family is complicated. I don't want to say that I have been discarded or ostracized by my family, but I think that there's a lack of understanding. There's a lack of conscious understanding and a conscious effort to learn who I am. They don't. They think that they know who I am and they don't need to learn anything about this trans stuff, is what they say. My mom has dementia, and that can be very difficult because I'm now 9 years in my transition and she still dead names me and misgenders me every day. And I've had to become okay with that or leave. You know, I've had to try to understand her mental health and her medical issues to try to navigate that. As far as my siblings, 2 of them have passed. 4 of them have passed because I also have step-siblings. And then the other 4, I talk to my older brother, but my other 3 sisters, I don't really talk too much. I see them, I see my 2 stepsisters around here every once in a while, but as far as communication, my oldest sister blocked me just before the Trump administration took over, and so I don't have any social media contact with her at all. And then what was the other question? I forgot. What worries me most right now? What the administration is doing right now. I'm scared. I push it down a lot. I don't allow it to come up. And I try not to sit in my fear because that's not good for me. And I'm worried. I'm really worried. Because even as an American who was born here, I can't go get a passport. I can't leave the country. They won't allow me to. That's the America I'm living in.
So that makes me wonder, like, what did your birth certificate say?
My birth certificate still has my dead name and my assigned gender of birth. I had never changed that. I didn't feel there was a big need to. I hadn't been dating anybody or was planning to get married. I wasn't planning on leaving the United States until this year. I was supposed to go to Mexico for my 50th birthday, but that is not going to happen. There still might be a possibility for me to get my passport and be able to do that because I live in Oregon and because I was born in Oregon. So because my birth certificate is in Oregon, I can still possibly get that changed over and still possibly get a passport, but that's not necessarily gonna happen. It's all up in the air because I know that there have been several of my friends who have had all of their documentation confiscated and not returned to them.
If you stay here, have a Sally O'Malley credit.
Yeah.
I wanted to add for those not aware, because I heard some people whispering about confiscated. Yeah, I manage multiple trans women, and none of them can travel to events for our industry because there have been incidents of you go to the airport, they just take your passport and send you away.
Yep.
So they're like, well, we have to hold on to this documentation until all this gets sorted out.
Right.
Like, when's that all going to get sorted out, right? So it's
right.
There's so much confusion. What?
How long has that been going on?
Just this year, right?
Yeah. Since Trump took over. Yes.
It wasn't before that. Right?
No. It was the Trump administration.
They're actually taking the documents away.
Yes, they are actually confiscating our documents and keeping them and not returning them. Yes, that is exactly what is happening right now in America today to trans people who were born here.
Okay, can I answer a really naive question and don't laugh at me? But what would happen if a trans person went to the airport with their lawyer and said, I'm not?
They would probably still be turned away. I mean, what's the lawyer going to do? The lawyer's going to have to follow whatever rules that they're setting in place.
Are those rules posted anywhere? Yeah, they'll take the passport.
Are they what?
Posted anywhere?
Are they posted? Not that I know of, no.
They don't need to. I mean, the TSA do as their judgment. That's
really scary stuff.
It is very scary, and it's even scarier that the majority of people don't realize that this is happening. And this is happening today in America to Americans.
I mean,
This is what happened back in the 30s. I won't say it, but this is what happened. This is how it started. This is exactly how it started. It started with them burning all the documentation and the books at the gender clinic in Germany. This is how it started. And I don't know how else to scream it or scream it louder, that this is what's happening today in America. Do your history. Read what happened back in the 30s in Germany.
Are there any attorneys that are working on the
There-
people that you just talked about?
There are lots of attorneys working on it. There's Lombada Legal, and there's, I can't even think, there's lots of national queer organizations that do have lawyers, yes, that are working on it. We're trying to overturn what is being done, but it's still a fight. It's still a fight, and it's a reality of what's happening. And it's scary. It's very scary.
I'm not sure I understand the pronoun they, and why would someone choose the pronoun they instead of a he or she?
Because if someone's non-binary or genderqueer, gender fluid, they might not feel comfortable with either one. Like they may not feel that their gender aligns with either male or female, whatever that means to them, or whatever their experience of that is. And so they will choose to use a they, them pronoun, or even another neo-pronoun. You know, my friend uses Z and Zir. So Z and Zir as Zir pronouns, yes. And it's important even though you don't understand it, it's important to respect it. You don't have to understand somebody to respect them, yeah.
What's interesting is, I was very confused with this, and I had discussions about, you know, they is a plural, blah, blah, blah. So when I started doing the research, I think back in the 16 or 1400s, they was a singular, historically.
No, when it's been used by, historically, it was used by, the life of me, who's the big, Shakespeare, thank you very much. Goodness gracious, yes, Shakespeare is the one that used it as yes, as not more than a singular. So, yes.
We do when we say things like they forgot their job.
Right.
Like we do use it.
But even if you look in the Old Testament of the Bible, it's got thee and thy, and you know, what about those words? Those words have just been transitioned out, that they just don't use them anymore. Not that they never existed. And what is a word anyways? It's made. Every word has been created by somebody from the beginning of time, right? So when people say, I don't understand these new words, all words have been created. Sorry to tell you that, but they have been. Okay, any more questions?
I was going to say this is really good information, and I encourage people to take time to go through it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I actually, and I was surprised when I pulled that up and sent that to Jenny, that was actually one of the first ones that popped up, because it is very informational, and these slips that were passed out letting you know what language can be offensive and why. And it is very important, because I do hear a lot of people use language that is harmful and makes me feel othered.
And if you need more of those, I can print more, just let me know. And they also have a QR code too, so you can scan it and get to the website on your phone.
We'll share it on your socials.
I will include a link to that on this. So this is being recorded, and it will be on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wanted to watch it online or share it with people after, I'll put a link to that in the description too.
That's a nice word, like for everyone to share.
Yeah, thank you for also sharing.
Far and wide.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you your supports. What are your supports right now in the community, just within your life, that you're leaning on to be able to wake up every day and to be able to put, one step in front of the other, basically, to keep going and to keep being strong? And then what can our community do to protect each other, amongst the horrible, horrible administration that is current and our reality? What can we do as allies? What can we do as brothers, sisters, anybody alike, to be able to help support and to be able to fight like hell to protect?
Okay, what was that the first question was,
your support.
My support system, thank you. What have I been doing to get my support? I've been trying to call on my friends when I need, but honestly, I haven't been giving myself the proper support that I probably should. I actually feel like, my community, as in the trans community, I feel like is being torn apart. I feel like we're being separated by different beliefs, and that tends to be led by TERF type belief systems, which TERF is trans exclusionary radical feminist type terms, which basically people refer to trans women as men. You know, we don't want men in women's bathrooms. We don't want men in women's sports. You know, that's TERF behavior. And there's still some people in the trans community that believe that they don't have all the correct information, and I feel like they are looking at it one-sided and not all around. And so within my own support, I feel like I haven't had the support that I really need. My friends, I know that they try to support me as much as they can, but they also work and are very busy, and are also very busy within the community as in they're leaders here. And so that can be difficult. I think gathering is the best thing that we can do. Start creating monthly gatherings, whether it be at somebody's house, somebody's basement, the church. We try to not have events at churches because churches have been very abusive to trans and queer people in the past. And so if people have space that you can open up, if you have a restaurant or a lounge of some sort, or any type of a large space that could hold people, there are lots of times queer people, such as myself, trans people, I am looking for places to hold my meetings right now at this point. So that is also, that's what we can do is, I think, spaces. We need open spaces.
Do you have any fears? She just said this will go out on a YouTube channel. Does that worry you for your safety?
Yeah, absolutely it does. I mean, that I have that consciousness knowing that my life can be in danger just by being visible, having this out there, but I put my life in danger every day because I quote unquote pass, and that's a loose term I'm using because people don't look at me and see a trans woman right away. I have to consciously out myself on a regular basis, especially when I explain what I do and how I help the community. And so it is a concern, but I don't hold on to it. If I held on to that fear, I wouldn't leave my house. Yeah. Okay.
How does someone know that they're trans?
How does someone know that they're trans? I would say it starts with your incongruence between your gender, which your gender is in your brain, and the sex that you were assigned at birth. And that can look in many different ways, but if what you are told, your body and who you are isn't matching with what is downstairs, that is where I would start questioning whether you have gender dysphoria or gender incongruence. And that's when you start talking to therapists and research, and that's where I started, because I didn't know. I didn't know that that's what that was. I didn't know my discomfort was my dysphoria. Yeah.
How hard is it to find that therapist that is going to be appropriate?
It's extremely difficult because I have lost my therapist, but that was my fault because the last 2 years I've been going through my own stuff and I didn't keep my appointments and I wasn't going. But it is extremely difficult to find a therapist that not only is knowledgeable, but possibly they themselves might be part of the community. For a queer or trans person, the best therapist is a queer or trans therapist. But just because it's a queer therapist doesn't necessarily mean they're always safe for a trans person, because they may be queer, but that doesn't mean that they are knowledgeable with trans journeys. Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
No? Okay, thank you.